Conditions on two Invercargill dairy farms have been described as catastrophic, and the worst examples of neglect the Ministry of Primary Industries has investigated. Federated Farmers says it's gobsmacked at the treatment of the dairy cows, which led to 193 cows being euthanised, and it says the case is an embarrassment to the industry. Cattle Rock Dairies Limited, which owns both farms, was fined almost $40,000 yesterday, while two farm managers were sentenced for their treatment of the cows. Rachel Graham has more.
Hundreds of cows were injured time and time again as they trudged over long distances across poorly maintained lanes to the milking shed. Their legs were injured and they suffered from ingrown horns. Injuries so bad almost 200 had to be euthanised and 760 needed significant veterinary care. 14 vets spent weeks on the farms euthanising and treating unwell cows. The Ministry of Primary Industries Manager of Compliance Investigations, Gary Orr, says it was the worst example of long-term neglect that MPI or its predecessor has ever investigated.
The lanes had basically been torn to pieces by constant use and were in places knee-deep in thick mud and excrement. And it was quite clear that any maintenance of the lanes that had been carried out was either inadequate or simply not undertaken when required.
Chris Lewis, the dairy chair for Federated Farmers, says he was gobsmacked when he heard of the treatment of the animals. He says he's never heard of a case like this before and hopes he never does again. Mr Lewis says lameness does happen, but usually a farmer might get 1 or 2 a week if weather is wet, and the farmer will treat the injury, rest the animal, or call a vet if needed. He hopes the case is a one-off and won't damage the sector's reputation.
But if it was, if it happens time and time again, maybe yes. It's something we're definitely not proud of. It's something we're definitely embarrassed about.
Jenny Jago, the Animal Welfare Portfolio Manager for Dairy NZ, says there's no place in the sector for this type of treatment, and even one case is one case too many. She says if people are struggling, there is support available via Dairy NZ, Federated Farmers or their local vet.
We encourage any farmer that's struggling or any farmer who sees another farmer that may need some help to get in touch. There's plenty of support in the industry. I think that's why it is disappointing that this has happened, because there's lots of training, lots of advice, lots of support out there, and it's just really important for farmers to recognise they do need that help and then to reach out and to get it.
In the Invercargill District Court yesterday, Castle Rock Dairies Limited was fined $37,500 in order to pay prosecution costs of $11,500. The two farm managers, Jared Matthews and Dean McMillan, each managed a farm of around 2,000 cows and around 700 hectares of land. The men were fined $10,000 each and sentenced to 275 hours of community service. Chris Lewis says he doesn't believe the size of the farm, or fact it was a corporate farm, was to blame for the problems.
It doesn't matter your size farm. Farmers know right from wrong. So whether it's large or small, it's just about doing the basics really well. And so scale has nothing to do with it. It's just about being a good farmer.
Gary Orr says both the men and the company blame each other, and it was unlikely the truth of what caused the dire situation on the Castle Rock Dairies farms will ever be known. For Checkpoint, this is Rachel Graham.